The distress beacon had been silent for 3 cycles before the meridian dawn intercepted it. Corey Chen, the ship's xenobiologist, stood in the cargo bay examining the source. 2 small, furry creatures huddled in a containment pod, their amber eyes wide with fear. Their Valkyrie cubs. Mary Rodriguez, the ship's captain, said softly. She knelt beside the pod, her weathered face creased with concern. Their colony ship must have been destroyed. These 2 are all that's left. The cubs were no larger than earth foxes, covered in silvery blue fur that shimmered under the bay's harsh lights. Their triangular ears lay flat against their skulls, and their bushy tails, typically a sign of Valkyrie contentment, hung limp and still. They won't eat, Corey observed, pointing to the untouched nutrient pellets scattered across the pod floor. Standard rations should be compatible with their biology. Mary frowned. How long can they survive without food? At their age, maybe for more cycles. 5 if we're lucky. Corey ran a hand through his dark hair, frustration evident in his voice. I've tried everything in the xenobiological database. They just won't touch it. The cubs whimpered, a sound that transcended species' pure, heartbreaking fear. Mary's jaw tightened. She'd lost crew members before, seen colonies wiped out by plague and war. But somehow the sight of these orphaned children struck deeper. There has to be something, she muttered. Corey pulled up his datapad, scrolling through Valkyrie dietary requirements. Their nutritional needs are similar to Earth carnivores: proteins, fats, minerals, but Valkyrie culture emphasizes communal feeding. The cubs are probably traumatized. In the wild, their pack would. He stopped mid-sentence, an idea forming. Mary caught the shift in his expression. What is it? Pack, Corey repeated slowly. Family, community. He looked up at her, eyes bright. What if it's not about nutrition? What if they need to feel safe first? Mary raised an eyebrow. You want to psychoanalyze alien toddlers? No, Corey said, a smile tugging at his lips. I want to cook them dinner. 20 minutes later, the ship's small galley was filled with steam and the rich aroma of simmering broth. Corey worked quickly, dicing synthetic protein into small cubes and adding them to a pot of water infused with bone extract from their emergency supplies. This is insane, Mary said, leaning against the doorframe. You're making soup. Broth, Corey corrected, adding a pinch of minerals and a dash of protein powder. My grandmother used to make this when I was sick. Chicken soup, she called it. Said it could cure anything. Your grandmother didn't encounter alien species. No, Corey admitted, stirring the pot. But she understood comfort, and right now, these cubs don't need science, they need someone to care. He ladled the broth into 2 small bowls, the liquid golden and steaming. The scent was simple, earthy, primal. Mary followed him back to the cargo bay, skepticism warring with hope on her face. The cubs hadn't moved. They remained pressed together in the corner of the pod, shivering despite the regulated temperature. Corey opened the containment field slowly, making himself as non-threatening as possible. He sat cross-legged on the floor and placed the bowls in front of him. Hey there, he said softly, his voice low and gentle. I know you're scared. I know everything feels wrong right now. The cubs' ears twitched, but they didn't move. Corey dipped his finger into the broth and brought it to his lips, tasting it. It's good, he said. Safe, I promise. Mary watched, hardly breathing. The larger of the 2 cubs, a female, based on her markings, lifted her head slightly. Her small nose twitched, sampling the air. The scent of the broth seemed to trigger something deep in her instincts. Slowly, painfully slowly, she crept forward. Her companion, a smaller male, followed, pressed against her side. They approached the bowls with extreme caution. Every muscle tensed to flee. The female cub sniffed the broth. Her tail gave a single, tentative twitch. Then she lapped at it. The change was instantaneous. Her ears perked up, and her tail began to wag slowly at first. Then with increasing enthusiasm, the male cub dove in beside her, and soon both were drinking eagerly, their small tongues working frantically. Mary let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. I'll be damned. Corey smiled, but his eyes were wet. It's not just about the food, he said quietly. It's about someone taking the time to prepare it, to show that they matter. As the cubs finished their broth, something remarkable happened. The female approached Corey, her tail still wagging, and pressed her small head against his leg. The male followed suit, nuzzling against Mary's boot when she knelt down. They're bonding with us, Mary whispered, awe in her voice. We're their pack now, Corey agreed. Over the following weeks, the cubs thrived. Corey prepared Earth-style broth for them every day, gradually transitioning them to standard rations. But he never stopped making the broth entirely. It became a ritual, a reminder that they were safe, cared for, loved. The female cub, whom they named Nova, became inseparable from Corey. The male, called Spark, shadowed Mary everywhere she went. Their tails wagged constantly, and the ship filled with the sounds of playful chirps and contented purrs. When the Meridian Dawn finally reached the Valkyrie homeworld, Mary and Corey delivered the cubs to a surviving colony. The reunion was joyful, but bittersweet. As they prepared to leave, Nova and Spark ran back to them one last time, tails wagging furiously. The colony elder, an ancient Valkyrie with silver-streaked fur, approached Mary and Corey. "You saved them," she said through the translator. "Not just their bodies, but their spirits." Corey shook his head. "We just gave them what they needed." The elder's tail swished thoughtfully. "Sometimes," she said, "the greatest technology is the oldest one, compassion. You humans understand this well." As the Meridian Dawn lifted off, Mary stood beside Corey on the bridge. Below, two small figures watched them go, tails wagging against the alien sky. "Humanity. Fuck yeah," Mary said with a wry smile. Corey laughed. "Something like that, though I think Grandma deserves some credit too." "To grandmothers and broth," Mary agreed, raising an imaginary glass. "To family," Corey added softly, "wherever we find it."